Jesus, he knew what this world was all about. He knew that politics was always going to be a part of this world. And he hit the nail right on the head, right out the gate. He addressed the elephant in the room immediately when he took Matthew the Publican and Simon the Zealot and made them part of the 12 disciples, and he made them walk together with him for 3.5 years. Completely opposite sides of the political spectrum. One of them was collecting taxes for the Romans. One of them was walking around trying to kill Romans. And he forced them into a position where they had to learn to be brothers together. I wish that we would hear more of their story. I just can imagine that wasn't easy. So all of this comes together to who is my neighbor? In Sunday school, we talk about loving one another, loving each other as a church. This passage in Luke talks about loving the other, loving the person that's different from you, loving the person that you might not normally cross paths with. It's out of Luke 10. I'm going to start with verse 25. But before we get there, first of all, here's my overview. This is what we want to specifically deal with today, is do we understand this parable? Sometimes we read a parable many, many times. We read it to our children. We hear about it growing up, and some of the shock value of the parable diminishes. So we want to talk about that. And then who's your neighbor today? And then what can we do for our neighbor today? Before we do that, though, I ran across this study, very fascinating study. I love facts and figures, and I won't bore you with all the facts and figures. I've got like 9 pages of data analysis here, so I'm not going to do that. But in the University of Princeton, nonetheless, in the 1970s, some sociologists were trying to study helping behavior. Why do some people help others? Why do some people not help others? They grabbed a whole bunch of university students, seminary students, okay, so religious people, religious men, and they designed a study. And they had, in one building here, they took them one at a time, gave them a questionnaire. How do you feel about helping others? You're in seminary. How do you, as you're training to be a pastor, how do you feel about physical health? How do you plan to live that out? And then let's do a little biblical study here. We're going to want you to share your thoughts on this passage, on the story of the Good Samaritan. But the recording equipment, we're going to record you. But the recording equipment is in this other building, a 5-minute walk away, and the surveyor looked at his watch and said, "Oh, we're running late. You better hurry to this other building." So the student gets out and runs, or hurries. Halfway between those two buildings, they had a man dressed in shabby clothes sitting slumped in a doorway, gasping and coughing. And specifically, as the student was hurrying past, he coughed and coughed again. And if the student stopped to help, he would say, "It's okay. I have a respiratory condition. I forgot to take my medication. I took it now. I'm okay. Just leave me alone." And try to push the student along. All of these seminary students, 60% of them didn't even pause. Rushed right past this man because they were in a rush. They were trying to get to their appointment. They were doing this interview. And they were specifically being asked to talk about this parable, the Good Samaritan. In a way, it was a bit of a mean trick on these students, but it was a test to see whether we Christians know how to put this to practice.